Presented from the Aishin Broadcast Studio at Babcock's Media.
Hello and welcome to Selling the Segment, where we spill the secrets to selling every segment of tire. My name is David, and on today's show, our guest is Doug Martin. He is the product manager of passenger and light truck tires for Van and Fleet at General Tire. Doug Martin, thank you very much for joining us on the show today. What tire segment are we talking about?
Government fleet tires.
Government fleet tires. And this is a segment that it might go overlooked for a lot of tire dealers out there. This isn't, the first segment that might come to mind as a revenue generator, but maybe it should be. And we're going to get into that a little bit. My first question for you is, if we go all the way back to 2022, Tire Review published an article that was titled "Fleet Tire Market to Outpace Overall Tire Market by 2026." And in this article, it argued that, greater efficiencies in commercial transport technologies are going to drive this particular segment's sales. Have we seen that play out over the years?
Yes, but from our perspective, we still experience this by consumer growth and still as a B2B demand. So yes, we definitely see it, but we just experience it a little bit differently.
Interesting. And how do those two segments kind of relate and play together?
Well, I think the first thing to think about is government agencies go just beyond police fleet, like where we have the Justice and Justice AW, but they're also so many other agencies that use vehicles on a daily basis that need fleet services that aren't necessarily using specialized tires, but use them in a fleet aspect, almost like a taxi service within a government entity.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Now, government buying, it's typically bid driven. It's not your typical tire sale. So from that perspective, how does that change the selling strategy from the dealer's perspective?
I really feel that dealers should approach it with what creates the best value for the particular agency that they're servicing. And that doesn't always equate into lowest acquisition price, but sometimes, like for instance, with our Justice and Justice AW, their police fleet tires, the way we try to create the value there is by having high levels of wet performance, which is probably pretty crucial for, you're talking about someone in a high speed environment potentially. You want to be able to stop, brake, and control as best you can. And that may not always come at the lowest acquisition price, but it does fulfill a very specific service need for that agency. And I think those are the things that dealers should look for within whatever government entity that they're trying to service. What is it that they are requiring, and how can they best fulfill it with tire attributes?
Interesting. So in a lot of ways, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like you're arguing that the sale isn't that different. You still want to lead with the right tire for the right application, making sure that we're speccing, that we're plugging in that correct product at the end of the day.
That's always the most important aspect, in my opinion, because if you're not doing that, then what they'll find is they'll be coming back and trying to find a replacement for something that's not working. If you can find and spec out things that work for those specific needs up front, it lowers the real need to have to go through the process again and again. And that just is more time added to everyone's stress level that could be avoided by just having the conversations up front of what are the expectations and and choosing a tire that best delivers those.
Absolutely. Now, I think you alluded to this a little bit before, but when we think of fleet tires, you might think of that police fleet, but there's all kinds of different vehicles under that government umbrella. I mean, there might be snowplows or garbage trucks, refuse trucks, maybe dump trucks. How does General Tire's portfolio cater to each of these types of fleets, and where do attributes like compounding and chip cut resistance, things like that, come into play?
Well, the compounding is very crucial for each segment because each segment calls for something slightly different. So the rubber compounds are specialized to those. Then you add on top of that the tread and the block designs. Sometimes the shoulders need to be opened up to give deeper
Mm.
voids. Um, Sometimes to present stone retention in those off-road applications. So as the segment goes, so are the tires specialized for them.
Hmm. Yeah, of course. I mean, as you said before, it's very important to have those correct attributes for that application. Now, I want to go back to something that I'd mentioned before, which is, in a lot of times in a government setting, this is a bid-driven selling process, and for those tire dealers who might not be familiar with that process, how does that kind of work from the government's perspective, and what might a selling strategy be when you might not be familiar with the next guy's bid, but obviously this is a contract that you want to win?
Sure. Again, I always come back to the term of value proposition.
Hmm.
And from our standpoint, we want we want the process to be beneficial to everyone involved in the transaction. So it means that we want to deliver a tire that suits the application, making sure that the loads and the speeds are met correctly,
Hmm. Hmm.
while also offering them at a value point where it is attractive to bring in the tire, to use it, and still lower the overall total cost of ownership throughout the life cycle of the tire.
Hmm.
As you do that step by step over the life cycle of each tire, then it translates into the life cycle of the vehicle, and we try to do our part in lowering that total cost of ownership over that entire process.
Excellent, Doug. And one last question for you. So I know in passenger applications, a lot of times, sometimes it'll only be a couple of years in between the next evolution of a specific tire product in a line. Is that process kind of mirrored in government fleet tires?
It is most certainly. The life cycles in the fleet applications are a little bit longer, but the process is fundamentally still the same.
Hmm.
We're always looking at how is our product performing. Do we need to make tweaks, adjustments to the current product?
Hmm.
Is it time to introduce a new product to the market, because then there's a leap in, say, material advances, compound advances,
Hmm.
that allows us to deliver a better product to the market, something that's more suitable to the needs and desires of fleets.
Hmm.
Um, we take all those things into consideration and build those into a life cycle, even though it may not be as short as, say, a UHP tire. Uh, but still, the process is still the same, and we still take in those same considerations.
Excellent, and that of course makes a lot of sense. Doug, thank you so much. I know I learned a lot here, and this was super helpful, so I appreciate your time.
I appreciate yours, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Take care.